Hi there, in this presentation I'll show you a call flow through CloudSBC service. It also applies to Cloud TDM service. So on input we have a buyer sending you a number, the call hits your SBC and you send it out to multiple carrier choices. So first your partner's call hits the firewall. We authenticate IP, protocol, port, and we see if this IP is not abuses your system. Next, call gets to SBC where we identify a trunk and the trunk parameters like calls per second allowed, codec, bandwidth allowed, concurrent calls allowance. Next, we're checking for a tech prefix, whether you provision that and you require that, or you have a multiple tech prefixes so you can assign different services to the same client. Now we apply your choice of a tech prefix to a routing table or class of service for this client. And inside your routing table, we first look for ANY or CLI. So we look at the calling number and see if it has a match in our table. If it does, it takes a precedence and we go into a subscriber routing table. So a table that applies individually for calling number or a range of calling numbers. If no match to any, then we use standard routing when we only look at the destination number. Hey, but there's more to it. At each step we can add routing complexity. So let's take a look at a few examples. Like when we identified a trunk group, we wanted to apply forced routing for certain matched numbers. Could be numbers in calling number or a call number that take precedence over all further routing there is. At the same stage, we can check for call criteria such as invalid ANY, absent ANY, blacklisted call, blacklisted ANY, and drop call early. Here we also check if your partner has sufficient funds and their calls should be allowed. And the next step, before hitting the routing table, we can dip into a number portability database, whether it's a local or remote, and replace call number with a number from the database. And once we assign a routing table, we'll look at both ANY and DNS to decide a route, or whether to block it or apply a script, like in a played IVR for this call. These are one of the few possibilities of R&R routing. There's a lot more. Those are less frequent cases, but whatever your case is, be sure we have a solution for your routing problem. Now let's take a look how we route outbound, what choices are available to you. Let's take a look how calls are routed out. This applies whether you have LCR or a manual routing. There are basically three choices: a sequence, proportion, and a round robin. So sequence puts your carrier choices as a waterfall. Everything goes to the first choice. Incomplete calls that were released from the termination side with certain release code and fall back to the second and third and so forth. Next is proportion, where you define what is the chance for each particular trunk to get a percentage of the first attempt. Note, we talk about the first attempt here. We're not talking about the total volume of minutes, because that is determined by the ASR and ACD of your provider. And third choice is round robin, when you can populate multiple carriers and each of them will have an equal opportunity to get the first attempt. After the first attempt, we have the same rerouting procedure as applied to other routing prioritization types. What's interesting is that R&R not only allows you to define how many routing choices for this code, for this member you can give, but also how many maximum attempts we should do. So you can have 10 carriers servicing this route, but R&R will not try more than 3 outbound choices. This greatly improves quality to your clients, and it also gives you an opportunity to put a lot more carriers in the routing table, let's say for test, without sacrificing quality for your client or extending your PDD to abnormal values.